Good afternoon and welcome to Markets Today. It's Tuesday. It's a very cold Tuesday in Nairobi, the capital of Nairobi. I hope you're trying to keep warm. At least we're seeing a bit of activity on the market yesterday and today, just to tell us there's some exciting things that are happening on the NSE. I will be giving you an overview of what happened yesterday on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, and then I'll touch base on some of the things that we have seen today, at least what I saw on the trading desks before I came to this show. Later on, we'll be doing a deep dive and understanding what happened in the month of August, where are the opportunities, what's happening so far in the month of September, and what else do you need to look out for. As usual, we have our segment Ask Mbithe, where I invite you to just reach out to us either on our SMS line or on our social media platforms. You could reach out to me, that's Mbithe Mwema or Metropole TV. We've gotten a few questions from you today. I will ensure to answer that, and I hope you can keep the questions coming in each and every single day. I always say we are here to break down the information for you, and it's because of you that we are actually able to be in this space and to articulate what's happening on the NSE. Without further ado, let me take you through what was happening yesterday on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Our graphics team will put up the data points for us, and I will be able to walk through this. You can see behind me on the screen the NSE share performance, a little bit of weakness yesterday at the start of the trading week. The NSE all share, the NSE 20 share as well as the NSE 25 share indices, they were all down at the beginning of the week. This is compared to the price points that they were trading last week on Friday. The key contributor to the downward movement was largely Safaricom. We did see up slightly over 12 million shares traded in this particular stock. Foreigners were on the buy side as well as on the sell side. This stock had hit a slight, was closer to 30 shillings over last week, but we saw it trade between the 29.5 shillings mark yesterday. That was a consequence in terms of the impact on the indices. Let's take a look at what was the performance in terms of turnover yesterday. Our graphics team will put that up for us. So you can see Safaricom there, a lot of block trading has been going through. When you look at the NSE in totality, yesterday, being a Monday, which was typically a slow day, was actually very, very active. It was driven by Safaricom. In terms of comparing the activity on the NSE yesterday, vis-a-vis what happened on Friday, we saw 166 percentage point in terms of a jump with regards to the turnover on the market. Key driver, you can see there, Safaricom, 12.95 million shares traded. There has been a heavy buyer in the market for yesterday and the week before. The week before, we saw days when it traded over 20 million shares in a particular day, hit a high of 30. Now it's trading range bound between 29 to 30 shillings per share. Just before we started this segment today, we had seen it trade about a million, slightly over a million shares over the day. So not too much happening there. It's always a trigger point for us just to get an indication of what is happening with the foreign investors. Are they net buyers? Are they net sellers? One of the key stocks that normally are invested in are Safaricom. The other key stocks, equity, KCB, a bit of EABL as well as BAT. These ones are always an indicator of the sentiment when it comes to the foreign investments in this particular market of ours. KCB Group was also there, 1.8 million shares traded. It's trading at 36 shillings per share. A bit of weakness. It had gone to slightly up of about 36.5. Now it's at 36 shillings per share. This is a stock that has rallied from a low of 30 shillings per share in the middle of August. Kenya Power, another company, 963,000 shares traded. We gave you an overview of the full year numbers that were reported. This company reported considerably lower numbers. The profits for the last reported period were 262 million, considerably lower. And the key driver for this was the fact that they paid slightly higher in terms of finance cost to be able to fund its operations, largely its working capital operations in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, a situation that saw the executive office actually dissuade a KPLC from shutting out electricity for people in the economy if they were unable to pay. That said, the company had to actually go out and access expensive funding for that cycle just to be able to handle its day-to-day operations. 963 is the number of shares we saw yesterday. We had seen a lot of activity last week, but this week it's tapered off. There hasn't been material changes in terms of the price movement following these numbers that are out. Kenya Re, 591,000. We can see the demand and liquidity is tickering off for this one. Last week, we saw it hit highs of 5 million in terms of the trades, the volume that was needed for this price. I think yesterday it was at about 2.1 shillings. Today it's at about 2.16, 2.2. There's some trades that have gone through at 2.3. We are not seeing material volume going there. The AGM is scheduled for the 9th of October. We don't expect to see any material news that's coming through this Kenya Re counter. And we're just continuing to keep sights on what is happening in terms of is there going to be additional demand for this counter. But it looks like it's coming to the tail end in terms of that demand and liquidity event like we saw last week. Equity Group Holdings, 348,000, not too much happening there. As at today, just before we started this show, UPSA was the top trade of the day. It has crossed about 3 million shares at 9.9 shillings. So we will be waiting to see how it actually ends the trading day for today. Let's have a look at the top gainers for yesterday's trading. Top gainers there, Stanley Fahari up 9 percentage points to 5.54. A stock that we keep hearing you asking us questions. We have heard you, and we hope you will be able to be part of our show on Friday as we take a deep dive on this particular stock. Each and every single week, we want to just take one particular stock, look at the profile, and try and evaluate, is there a buying opportunity for this particular stock? 9 percentage point is the price point that we saw yesterday. It closed at 5.54. When you look at Stanley Fahari, it's actually trading below its book value. In other words, if you were to take this price, multiply it by the total shares that have been issued by the company, you'd get a value that's slightly lower than the value of the assets this company has invested in. This asset, Stanley Fahari is invested largely in retail and commercial real estate and was acquired in full by ICEA. I hope you can keep it here. On Friday, we will be giving you a bit more information, trying to evaluate whether there is any upside for this particular counter. Uchumi, up 7% to 0.3. Negligible volume traded. 9,300 shares were traded yesterday. Negligible volume. One of you asked us, what is happening on this stock? Does it trade and what's the overview there? I'll give you just a brief in a few seconds. Nation Media, this has been a star performer. Last week and this week, the day before on Friday, top gaining stock up 10%. This stock was at a low of 13 shillings per share in the month of November, but it's been clicking almost 7 to 10% on a day-to-day basis. It's still one of the top performers on the day. It's gone up to about 19.5. So if there's some people who are able to pick that, you certainly made a good return on your investment. But I think at the levels that it's at, it's becoming a bit harder for you to keep pushing in terms of hitting the 10% mark day-to-day basis. Flame Team Group was there as well. British American was there as well. Let's take a look at the top losers for the day. Stanbic Holdings was performing stock for the day yesterday, down 8 percentage points to 78.5. No material information happening there. Britam Holdings losing a bit of ground, down 7 percentage points to 7.02. We had seen a bit of uplift and uptick on price last week, but not too much happening there today. CIC Insurance, one of the penny stocks, down 3 percentage points to 2 shillings. Express and Jubilee Holdings. Jubilee down 2.27% to 215 shillings per share. That's pretty much what we had for you in terms of an overview of the NSE and what was happening yesterday. I will introduce our guest for this particular segment when we go on a break. But before I get into that, on Ask Me Then, one of you asked us, what is happening with Uchumi? What has been happening and what should you make of it? Well, you have seen that it has been one of the top gainers in yesterday's trade session, but it only gained on 9,300 shares that were trading. In brief, Uchumi is a stock that had been suspended from trading for a very long time. This suspension was lifted in the year 2011. When the suspension was lifted, the stock came into the market at a price of 14.5 shillings. There has been a deterioration in terms of the price, largely reflective of what has been happening to the existing business. Today, this stock is at 0.3 shillings per share. Now, Uchumi was the place that you went to when you wanted to shop. Uchumi Hyper was a place you took your family, you'd let your kids play or eat a meal as you did your monthly or even weekly shopping. This has changed. The retail sector in Kenya can be quite brutal if you're not very careful. What has the story been on Uchumi? Largely, there has been issues on corporate governance, misuse of funds that were supposed to have been allocated to the suppliers. To date, the current news is this company has been given a bit of leeway and a bit of legroom by the courts of Kenya. It owes 4.7 billion shillings to the suppliers, people who used to distribute food and other groceries and other items to the supermarket, had not been paid. It's certainly a sad state of affairs when you have been a supplier to Uchumi and the courts tell you you'll only get 30% of what you're owed. And this excludes any interest accrued for the periods that you haven't been paid. What we're saying is, yes, it's trading at 0.3 shillings per share. When you're trading a stock, two key things are the drivers, technicals. Is there any interest for this particular stock in terms of demand and supply? The second thing which underpins whatever is happening on the technicals is, what are the fundamentals? Is there any hope for this company to make money? Is there any hope for Uchumi to come back? I'll leave that question with you. Have you seen Uchumi anywhere near you? And in your own opinion, is there any hope for this particular company to come back? If your answer is no, then you must be extremely cautious when you're looking at this particular stock. If you're going to look at a penny stock, at least look for a penny stock that has some upside in terms of its fundamentals. For Uchumi, it's a sad state of affairs. We haven't seen the numbers for the last 2 years. Capital Markets Authority is yet to give direction on this. So it's not delisted, it's not suspended, it's still active on the NSE, but we're not very clear on the financials. These have not been made public. The only information that is public is that they owe 4.7 billion to the suppliers and are only able to pay 30% of that. Uchumi has been given 6 months by the courts in Kenya to be able to figure out what they're going to do with what they owe to the suppliers. If not, that there's a possibility of this company being wound down. It looks like it should have been something that happened a while back, but they've been able to get a clinch of room in terms of each and every single time they're able to go back to the to the judiciary and get some point of regress in terms of their operations. That's the standpoint for Uchumi, and I hope that answers your question. We take a break, but when we come back, we are joined by Martin. Martin is a senior analyst at Standard Investment Bank. Martin will be taking us through Standard Investments Bank monthly report. He'll be giving us an overview of what was happening in the month of August and what should we expect in the month of September. This is very exciting because it always gives us a top-down perspective on in as far as is concerned. So it's very exciting to have him here, and I hope you can be able to ask us your questions. We are running live. Please reach out to us. You can reach out to me, Bithe Mwema, either on Twitter, Instagram, on LinkedIn or Facebook. Give me a shout. What would you want to know? Do you have any questions that you would like us to bring forth on your behalf to ask Martin as we go through the show? Our SMS line again is 20146. Also, if you have any questions that you would like us to ask, please use that line and we can communicate. We take a short break. When we come back, we will be joined by Martin to discuss the month of August and what to expect in the month of September. See you in a few.